Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, June 14th.
It's
I'm Jane Johnston
Friday,
with Friday.
June
I'm Jane
15th.
Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosa. Welcome to Victoria Real Estate Show.
Hey, it's Andrew Plank with the Five Real Estate Group, and we are missing somebody today. What's going on?
Jen Lou has sore throat, I believe. There is stuff
She's
going
got
around.
tag. Yeah, yeah. So poor
So
Jen is not able to join us today because she does not want to digitally share any germs.
she may be commenting as we go along. So we look forward to hearing what you're going to say, Jen. How was your week?
Absolutely. Good. Yeah, I've been. I'm really working on systems lately for the Vibe Group, and really enjoying that element of it. And also, work's been good. I got to give client keys again. It's been a number of closings recently, so really good experience. It's always so happy to give people keys and to get really positive feedback and to help them on their way. So yeah, it's been a good week.
Good.
Other than at volleyball, I pulled a muscle, and then my friend pulled a muscle, and our whole team went like cratered because half our team was old and limping.
That's funny. Um, So we had a listing where this lady had written an offer. It wasn't subject to sale, but we had to get her place sold. And anyway, she's in between getting her place sold, and I told everybody who showed it with her permission. She broke her hip.
So she couldn't leave the house.
Well, so she could leave the house because she ended up going to the hospital, but she was fairly comfortable before. We were wondering, like, do we still list the house because we had everything ready or not? So we ended up doing so, and we sold it in 3 days over asking multiple offers. Thank goodness.
Yeah, but that's such a life-changing experience to break a hip, and then the recovery and all that stuff. It can be hard to do that in the transition of moving house.
Yes. So so anyway, we broke it down into steps, but of what needs to be done. But oh my God, it was a bit stressful.
I imagine. Well, one of my colleagues was just sharing that, they've just formed a partnership as well with a colleague. They just got married, had a baby, sold their house. Like everything happened within like a couple of weeks. Like sold a house, bought a house. Like, wow, I'm never going to do this again.
That's so
It's
funny.
stressful even for realtors, folks, especially when you add other things in.
I call it empathy trading. Okay, so
Yeah, absolutely.
let's talk about what's going on with the market. Um, we are doing the market update. We're talking cutting edge real estate issues in
Cutting.
2024.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, if you like this topic, please like us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Follow us, share, ask questions. We'd love to answer your questions as we go along here. And don't forget to comment as well.
This is
Okay,
interactive. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So it is June 14th, is it? Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So it is June 14th, but it is Friday. So 378 new listings went live in the last week. 169 properties went pending. If Jane did the math, she'd probably say that was 42%. Price decrease is 165, pretty much on par with pending. We've been seeing that they're sort of pending and price decrease seems to be about even. Sort of an interesting thing to note. 3 properties increased in price. 2 properties came back to market after coming off. 161 transacted. 33 properties expired. It's actually a pretty small number of expired listings given the amount of inventory that we actually have on market. 15 properties were withdrawn. Jane, do you want to take away for comparing to last week?
So new listings are down from last week, 448 last week, 378 this week. Pendings are 169 this week. They were at 45% last week, 43%. Price decrease is about the same at 175. And I think that there are less expireds because we've just started a new sort of half year, and so I think people have made significant decisions beginning of summer, and so that's why we're seeing more expireds a week before than we are now.
We tend to see a lot of expireds, for example, in December, where people are wrapping up their listing contracts and maybe taking a break over the holidays. And we do find that these things follow a bit of a pattern and often maybe line up at mid-month or beginning of the month, but maybe not the weeks in between.
That and showings as well, by the way. So they all align. There's a psychology of real estate.
He's going to
Alrighty.
write a book one day.
So net unconditional sales so far for the month of June are 174. That's compared to 705 for June of 2023. 458 new listings in June so far. We're halfway through the month, and last month we had 1,757. So we're seeing a significant decrease, I'm thinking. And we're less than we were last year. So maybe we'll see a better list to sale ratio.
I mean, if we're on par, we're going to end up with like 900 new listings by end of month if this rate stays consistent. So versus the same month last year, that's 400 less, and versus just last month, that's 800, almost 800 less listings.
Well, this is June 10th, so there's 30 days, so it could be 1,500 listings. We'll see.
Right, sorry, June 10th. So times 3, not times 2. I was thinking we were halfway through the month. Good point. So we actually could be on par.
Yeah. So active listings, we're high, 3,387. This is why I like doing these things weekly, is because even though like I look at this number every single day, total listings, and I'm looking at what's coming on and what's going. This is just a good reminder for ourselves where we stand. Okay, I put in this new slide and I forgot to put in our topic slide, so I'm going to just head directly to our guest show layout. Yesterday we went to a conference, it was called Big Issues. There was a panel, 4 people, a lawyer, a former lawyer who's a managing broker, an accountant, and a developer. And so
actually, I thought he was an accountant as well, but he's actually a partner at Cook Roberts, and he's a legal counsel in tax litigation.
Okay.
He spoke like an accountant. He was actually quite funny. He was very dry, but he was quite funny. And but no, he was talking about all things accounting in a sense because it has to do with tax litigation.
Okay. And I could barely hear him, but anyway.
Yeah, he didn't speak very loud. So we had Mike Holmes, broker owner at Pemberton Homes. He's also was in another life and may still be a lawyer. Peter DeMeo, who does a lot of real estate transactions here in Victoria, he's a real estate lawyer. Amongst other litigation. Types of lawyers. Yeah. Luke Morey of Arise Developments. So we had a developer in talking about the development scene. And then Andre Richard with Cook Roberts, who does the tax litigation. So what was interesting to me, Jane, was like so many people showed up that I have not seen in years. This was a real estate board event, so it was all realtors there. Jen actually tried to come and join us, but because she's not a realtor, she wasn't allowed. So it was all realtors, but there were realtors I have not seen in years. I was like, oh, this person's still around. They're still licensed. They're still in business. But this drew out a lot of people.
Yes, it did. And also I'm finding like it's sort of people who haven't maybe picked up on the nuances. And I've found there were a lot of nuances explained yesterday.
I haven't picked up on the nuances. Like there are a lot of nuances. And, you know, folks, we can't get into it all today other than to say, you know, pretty big picture stuff. And the real takeaway is things are really, really getting more and more complicated as more legislation comes in, more tax regime, more complicated contracts. And it's all so much more important to be really aware and have your whole team, not just your realtor, engaged to be able to give you advice. So if you're like considering buying and you're working on your landed immigrant status, you're from out of country. That's a big one, obviously. If you're looking to buy something for some income and it's being used as an Airbnb, what happens now because they're no longer allowed, but are they? And then the confusion around, oh, well, it's my principal residence. Yes.
Okay, so let's just, this is
Let's
one
talk
that,
it through.
okay, so two things. First of all, being a foreign buyer and what is the definition, and being Canadian and having the right documentation. Those are two different things. So interestingly, I have clients, one is Canadian and her partner is American who now has his PR. And he has a legitimate permanent residency card. And yesterday after the talk, there was a discussion about accuracy of documents. And I was like, I should just make sure she has up-to-date passport, because he said you need a passport or a permanent residency card.
Yeah.
And turns out hers isn't. And so we haven't bought yet, but I'm like, you need to get on this. And so apparently she was told you could also use a social insurance number, but I'm not quite sure about that because it's not picture ID.
Yeah. Well, so as real estate agents, we need to identify our clients, and we identify them generally, driver's license is sufficient. We're not at that point confirming residency for tax purposes or anything like that. It's really best practice, and this is what they were highlighting, that we do that. The lawyer is also supposed to do that. There was a case where it was missed by a British couple coming in, buying something, I think in Kelowna, and they had said that they were good, had whatever they had, but there was something missed, and they ended up having a big bill. So
what happened was the realtor trusted what they said, that they had been approved.
Right. That they were valid for buying in Canada. And then, they ended up with the foreign buyer's tax or whatever it was that applied at the time. And suddenly everybody's getting sued because who is responsible for making sure that these things are happening? And it often lands on the realtors. But, we can say to our clients, hey, ensure you are aware of your residency. But our best practice is to ensure we don't actually help someone, and we can actually get fined for helping someone who is a foreign buyer to enter a contract to buy something when they're actually not allowed to. So we need to really be more aware of that. It's got the two stages, us and the lawyer, where it could get caught. But once you've entered a contract, there's room for a lot of trouble.
So it's not only are they allowed to buy, but where are they allowed to buy? They have to tax. Like there's federal and provincial rules around this, so just be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, the other one for me that was a biggie was the short-term rental accommodation. So because lawfully, the province has apparently lawfully changed they've taken away short-term rentals in condos. And so it has to be in your primary residence, but it also has to be licensed. So many homeowners have Airbnb in their homes, and they're doing it because they were told if it's your primary residence, it's allowed. But what they're not realizing is that they actually need a business license. So they're operating without a business license, and there may be people who are reporting on them. So just be careful when you're advertising. And then the second thing for that is because they've taken away short-term rentals and are moving towards regular rentals of 3 months or more, it's a change of use, and so they should be filing GST.
Yeah.
That's a biggie.
Yeah, that's a really biggie. So suddenly you are, well, suddenly the GST is payable because you're changing the use. I didn't fully understand it, but folks, this is like the legislation regime that we've seen in the last while. And apologies for the format here, but since 2006, we had the foreign buyers tax come in. We've had the speculation vacancy tax come in 2018. The underused housing tax came in 2022. The amendments to Strata Property Act removing rental restrictions came in 2022. The cooling off period allowing for right of rescission in 2023. Prohibition on the purchase of residential property by non-Canadians, foreign buyers ban, 2023, January. Housing Supply Act, May 2023, anti-flipping rule, 2023. A lot has happened in the last couple of years. Anti-flipping tax, 2024. Short-term rental accommodation act, 2024. Housing statutes, Residential Development Amendment Act, also known as the Small Multi-Scale Unit Housing Act. The Transit Hub Development, this is proposed, and the Standardized Housing Design Project. All that is to say, there's different levels of government that you've got to look at, like how does this apply? Where does this apply? Does this apply federally? Does this apply provincially? Does this apply municipally? We're looking at maps to see where things are applied. We are asking about residency. We are also asking about what kind of use you want to put the property to. We are, if you're looking to do some development or buy something for future development, the takeaway from the developer was it's really become hard to do any kind of development, both because of the cost of construction, the difficulty, even though they say they're making it easier to do development, the building code has gotten so much more complicated that it is really expensive to build. So builders are now moving towards rental buildings instead of doing condos, they're still doing condos, but single family homes and small unit developments are not happening.
They're moving away from ownership to rentals because there's incentives from government to provide rental properties. So what's basically happening is everyone's trying to play catch up, and we're behind. So because we haven't been very nimble in changing as the needs of people coming in are changing, we are trying to play catch up right now. So there's
when you say we, Jane, what do you mean? You want to?
I mean the provincial government and the municipalities are now trying. First of all, they're working on their official community plans now. They're trying to revise them.
Yeah.
That will create the zoning, and then it'll, with the change in zonings, there'll be no delay, hopefully, in the developments. So that's one cause of problems. But apparently there are more taxes happening.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I'll go back to that. But one of the things that, our population is growing much faster than our housing stock. And the government has said we would like to see more housing stock. But they're also putting all levels of government seem to be putting really high tax burden on people who are thinking of doing it, or putting, there's still, as much as they say they're trying to remove restrictions to building, there's lots of restrictions there. The developer from Arise was saying, and he used a great slide, we don't have a copy of this, but if you look at development back from, the 60s to the present day, there was this line, even before the 60s, of, how many new housing units and developments were happening in BC. And it was pretty low numbers every year. And then you get into the 70s and you've got this huge buildup of development because the government removed a lot of the tax burdens on building. And there was something called the MURB, which I don't remember what MURBs exactly stood for, but
multi-unit,
there was
condo development.
There were lots of little multi-unit rental buildings, and there was a building explosion, but it helped to create more housing supply. But since then, it's been very, very, very low again. And it was only during that window where the government said, you know what, we're going to actually give up billions of dollars in tax revenue in order to actually prioritize housing. And that's kind of, I think the takeaway from that was, think that's kind of necessary again. If you really want to prioritize housing, stop trying to make money off of people trying to make money off housing, allow people to make money off housing so they can actually build housing.
Right. So the cost of the developments have gone up. The rules have gone up. So therefore the time has gone up. And so we're now less efficient than we've ever been. That's
Yeah.
basically what he was saying.
Yeah. He was giving an example of, and so one of these down here is this transit hub development project. It was an interesting one too. He gave an example that, so now these proposed rules are you're going to be able to develop around transit hubs because they believe that around a transit hub you should have higher density. But then he gave the example of the transit hub over by the legislature, where there's a transit hub there. And so if this development proposal came in, you'd have this concentric ring of additional development support right near the legislature, the museum, and the Empress Hotel. And you're not really going to get that, number one. But number two, the only reason that there's a transit hub there is because the bus drivers in that area need a place where they can stop and leave their bus and go use the washroom at the museum.
The museum.
And so he said, this is not a great reason to be building high-rise condos around this particular hub. Why are they doing these hubs here?
Well, because what he was saying, because if we allow for density increase around the hubs, we're choosing the wrong place for it to be a hub.
Exactly. There needs to be more of a, let's think about where these hubs are and why they're here before we just say we're going to build up a bunch of stuff around a hub that already exists and we may not have had, the reason for it. Just like a lot of our roads in Victoria are based on old cow paths.
I'm not opposed though to a hub, a transit hub being right there because I used to work in government and it was very handy for it to be
Of course.
right there. And there were lots of people coming and going from that spot. But anyway, and also lots of visitors who come and go there. It just makes it easy. But yeah, so I'm on the board of Habitat for Humanity. One of the things they talk about there, we were trying to get a development. We're still trying to get approval on Feltham, and the Saanich is allowing development along the corridors of Shelburne and Gordon Head, but Feltham is a major transportation hub between those two, or transportation corridor. So we're trying to get kind of an exemption there to get the development. Anyway,
there you go.
If we, if you want affordable housing, you're going to have to bend a little, people.
Yeah. Oh, and so you unshared the screen, but I'm going to do this again and share a screen. Where is it here? How do you? Could you bring that back to the share screen? Hang on a second here.
I don't have it.
Yeah, I'll do it here. Sure. Okay, there it is. See, so again, going back to development, one of the things the developer was saying about, again, why this is becoming really expensive and why developers are not building more. There are things like this number 8, the full adaptability requirement that's being added as a regulation. Homes are now going to be required to be fully adaptable for people with disabilities. And yet, maybe was it 8% of the population, whatever it is, would require this, but you're adding extra cost and extra requirements to make every home that's built meet certain standards for adaptability. Well, not even certain, but it looks like full adaptability. You're also these family-friendly requirements that they're bringing in, where going to have 3 bedrooms, at least 3 bedrooms on one floor or something like that. Anyway, his note here, and this is just me taking from the notes and the slides at this event, is we are taxing housing out of existence, and it's it's something just to note that we are living in an environment where it was much easier and much cheaper, I think, to build a very good quality home many years ago. You may not have had not met all the current zoning requirements, and those are, code requirements, and those are there for safety, absolutely. But when it's almost too expensive to build, then you're kind of, you've got to have a balancing act here.
I do find though that some of what the notes that they've made do make sense. So for instance, I I like the fact that they took away the rental restrictions because I do think they made some more condos more affordable.
Mhm.
Um, Whoever they are, I do like the full electrification. Um, as I have an electric car and I find like it's limiting. Um, this is where you get range anxiety when you don't have a place to to charge. And so
To charge.
and different condos have solved that issue differently. It's not that you have to have a charging station at each parking stall, but it also kind of pokes people like get with the times here, you know. The seismic changes, probably a good thing. Adaptability, I do think that's a good thing, but it could also be it's very expensive. But this is it maybe if it's something that's grandfathered in planning, or maybe a percentage. I don't know. I know
Mhm.
in Habitat we do a percentage,
Yeah.
and then
And that makes
the
sense, absolutely. But when you're adding a requirement that it be on everything, then it's overbuilt.
the anti-flipping, which is on the next page, I'm pro and con about. I think that they should be maybe less stringent on that because some people are doing what maybe a homeowner isn't capable of doing. And so it's actually an affordable way for somebody to come in and buy a place that's done, if it's done well.
Yeah, so I had that thought too. So you've got an old derelict home, and somebody would like, we work with young couples who are just starting out. They don't have the tools, the resources, the money, the skills to buy a home and fix it up. But there's no incentive now for someone to buy a home, fix it up, and flip it. So these old derelict homes are not necessarily going to be, um, they've lost a market. They've lost a potential, um, value for them. And so they're going to go down in value. And then you're going to have people who are going to be buying them and then, I guess, hiring a contractor to fix it up for them to live in. That's rarefied air. There's a lot less people willing to go through that process than people who either, are willing to buy something that doesn't need a lot of work and put some minor work into it. Um,
I guess it depends on who's going to be living in it, right? Like if you're a flipper, you're going to buy it, you're going to flip it quickly, and it's going to go out again to the market. But
right, but
if
exactly.
you're if you're buying it, you're going to renovate it, you're going to be living there. That's tough. That's hard.
That's harder because you've got to have another place to live in the meantime. You don't know what you're not an experienced developer. You don't know what your costs are going to be. At the end of the day, you don't know what your timelines are going to be. So it's really hard for you to make, household decisions around. Not everyone can afford to buy a home, rent another space, or hold their current home and to sell it after the first home is fully fixed up. So, yeah, you end up with people who are no longer able to help this housing stock, which, if that home had been taken, fixed up, and flipped, now it can sell to that young couple or that, established family who says, I don't want to have to do the work to put into a home. I want something turnkey. I also can't afford, because my mortgage limitation is here and I only have so much down payment. I can't afford to buy a place and then add all this extra money in to do the repairs to it. But I certainly can afford a fully fixed up place, and I can afford those mortgage payments.
Let's go back up to the top there, number 5. You have a cooling off period.
Mm.
Pro or con? What do you think? Has it been good?
I mean, it adds a lot of confusion, in some sense, because no longer can a seller, um, look at 5 offers, choose the best one, know they are sold. And there are people who are now, savvy people might use this cost of the cooling off period, because there is a cost to exercising the right of rescission, as a cost of doing business for maybe offering on 2 or 3 properties. You can choose to do that now. I mean, it may not be moral, but you can do that legally and then just pay the fee and walk away within that cooling off period. Um, I, I'm mixed about it. I think that it was, it was designed to fix a problem for a period of time when we were in a really hot market. And as the market's cooled, I think it's not as useful.
For me, I sold a house 3 times earlier this year. Buyer A, buyer B back up, buyer A rescinded, buyer B then went into effect, buyer B rescinded, buyer A came back, bought it after paying a rescission fee.
I had a situation recently where, and this was interesting, but my client wrote an unconditional offer. And again, knowing that they would have written this offer unconditionally in the past. Before this
Um,
cooling off period, they wouldn't have been writing an offer like this, but they knew that they had this, you can't say get out of jail free, but for a small fee, you can get out of jail. And so they made their offer, and then they discovered, and that their financing wasn't as strong as they thought. And they had to backpedal a bit and try to find other financing options. And they were willing to go forward, and they still wanted to go forward, but we actually had to renegotiate a condition into the offer. And what was interesting was, and I think it was the right move, and very fair. The agent, and I mean the sellers weren't happy. The agent wasn't happy. We came back and said, hey, you're not sold, and rather than us rescind, we'd like to add a condition in here for financing and give ourselves till Friday. And they said, that's okay, we will accept that. But now part of the deposit, because is now
refundable.
non-refundable, because if you had chosen to rescind, you would have been paying this. And because we're giving you this condition now, you get out of that rescission period, you don't have to pay it unless we add that in. So, I mean, that's just a complicated sort of side story, but it's just interesting how these things, add a little bit of complication. They add a lot more conversation. They're definitely helpful to buyers to feel like they can get in more comfortably into an offer, I think. Yeah, I don't feel as strongly about this one because I don't think it doesn't impact our life so much as some of the other stuff. The anti-flipping rule, I'm not so big on that. Anti-flipping tax and rule. And there are things that, again, and it's also the minefield of the different levels of government where, and the Short-Term Rental Accommodations Act, I'm really not in agreement with that one. Because simply because there's a lot of people who bought, and there's a lot of units downtown that are really best set up for short-term rental. And by taking that away from those owners who bought in good faith and had been operating on that so the history, folks, is downtown Victoria area used to, their old town zoning allowed for short-term rentals. And then the city of Victoria decided they weren't so big on short-term rentals, but they were going to grandfather. They changed their zoning so that it was no longer allowed. But anybody still using that is grandfathered under what's called legal non-conforming use. And now with the provincial government having removed it, anyone who was operating now is no longer allowed.
So Jen Lowe asks, talking about short-term rentals, are there different rules for each municipality about valid business license? So City of Victoria has a licensing requirement for Airbnb, and they have a process, and apparently Oak Bay and Saanich do not. And so, but people are still operating Airbnbs out of those properties because they have misinterpreted the rule to say that because it's their primary residence, it's allowed.
People are cherry picking the news. So when the news says Airbnb is still allowed in your principal residence, they're saying, oh, well, then we can do this. But it still needs to be allowed by the municipality and the zoning.
Yes.
And Victoria allows it in their zoning as within your principal residence. But Saanich, Oak Bay, they do not. And Luke did a great PowerPoint, and he showed us maps of, if you just go to Airbnb and look for B&Bs in Saanich, Oak Bay, you're going to find a whole bunch of them. The main thing, folks, No, not Peter DeMeo. Was it Peter DeMeo?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you know what? You're right. It was Peter. But the main thing that you got to be aware of is that the province is putting together an
task
enforcement
force.
division. Yeah, so they're going to start looking for these and start enforcing and perhaps levying fines and shutting all this down. And so it's, even though right now maybe there's not the teeth yet, the teeth are coming.
Yeah. Okay,
So
so last comment, and then I've got to get started with my day. So Jen is asking, she's saying, we're so incredibly short on housing supply, but it's no wonder developers are not developing. Exactly. There's a
yeah,
lot of roadblocks in the way. Um, Also, just going back to short-term rentals, one of the things that people don't realize is how many people in real estate use short-term rentals as a way to land softly between
mhm,
housing, and hotel prices I've heard have gone up. So even though
of course.
there's no competition, the prices have gone up.
So, I mean, I recently was working with someone who would love to come to Victoria. They're living in the States, but she's Canadian. They'd love to come to Victoria, but they want to taste test it here too. They'd love to find an Airbnb on the water, because that's where they want to live. They want to buy something on the water. They don't want to live downtown. Where are you going to find a hotel? I mean, maybe Brentwood Bay Resort or something, but they want to find something that where they can actually just live in more of a single family home style setting on Airbnb and just taste test the space. Um, yeah, there are so many different reasons why people will want to come and just rent for 2 weeks, a month, 3 months to Victoria. They've sold their home. They don't have another place yet to buy. They actually need to put their stuff in storage, but also want to have a space they can live in. They don't want to stay in a hotel.
Right? They want to experience living in Victoria.
Yeah, yeah,
And often I find, like, it's funny. So when I used to do my podcast, Vancouver Island Time, we'd interview people about different neighborhoods. Everybody loves their neighborhood. So
yeah,
it's a good way to kind of get, sunk
yeah.
in to see where you fit and what the people are like. And if you're in a hotel, you're not going to feel that whatsoever.
What exactly? What a great way to taste test a neighborhood by getting space in that neighborhood. One of our colleagues recently posted to one of our network groups that they've got a family coming from up island and they're coming here for medical treatment. But the whole family wants to come, right, and stay for a number of months while this medical treatment is happening. Are you going to put each person in a different hotel room? Are you going to, or can you find something short term that's going to be, there's so many reasons for short term rentals that I think that was short sighted. So yeah, I mean, today I think the main takeaway today, folks, is like a constantly changing landscape. It's very complicated out there. We didn't talk about the capital gains, which was another big piece of conversation. We won't get into it, but the capital gains tax stuff is another one that's really causing a lot of concern for people. There's a lot of minefields out there. Talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer,
Talk to
figure
your
things out,
realtor.
talk to your realtor.
Make sure your realtor is informed, you guys.
Yeah, we can
And
highlight things, but we've got to be careful what advice we give. We will be
yeah,
probably giving you unsatisfactory advice, which is the advice is talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant. Because it's such a complicated minefield that we might think we know the answer based on the 5 or 25 or 500 ways we've seen it done in the past, but you might be the one exception that's different.
so the realtor should have a red flag go up when you say something that may alert them, and they'll tell you, talk to your lawyer. And they
Yeah,
should have, and as Peter said, have a good team around you. Totally true. People you can
yeah,
call on, so that if you have that question, you can get it answered quickly, because it's not what you find out, it's when you find it out.
yeah. And that's one of the things that even they were all saying is like, hey, I can help you if you give me a month's lead time or a couple of weeks lead time. If you call me last minute and you're closing today, it's game over.
Yeah. Okay, I have to go.
Yeah,
So
great
thank,
talk.
thank you. Excellent notes. Thank you very much. Okay, you guys, if you have any interest in watching our show, we are on every Thursday, not Friday. Thursdays at 9:30. So please come and meet with us. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you have any questions or comments, you can see we can highlight them on our screen. So we'd love to do that for you. Andrew, how do people reach you?
They reach me they can phone me 250-360-6106. They can email me info@andrewplank.com. They can find me on Instagram at plankandrew. And yeah, or just find me in the neighborhood and out in the woods. I don't know, wherever we are in our natural environment.
Okay, and then if you are here next week, you're going to be seeing Jen Lowe. So she's our regular guest, 250-217-4925. She's at the Modern Mortgage Group, and her email is j.lowe@dominionlending.ca. And you can visit her on her website at jenlowe.ca. And my name is Jane Johnston. I'm with the Briar Hill Group. My number is 250-744-0775. My email is briarhillgroup.com. My website's briarhillgroup.com, and you can watch these shows and more at victoriarealestateshow.com. All right, and if you want to know about lifestyle in Victoria, please follow me on Instagram at realtyteacher_Remax Victoria. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Love you, buddy, and
Thanks.
we'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks everybody for watching, and Jane, we'll see you next week. See you.
Okay.
Hopefully you're feeling better, Jen.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.